I'm taking you back to the summer of 2010. I'm on the road with Sarah McLachlan for the tour known only as Lilith. This is From the Vault. Hey, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. If it's your first time here, I'm photographer David Bergman. I've been a professional photographer for 30 years now. I'm proud to be a Canon Explorer of Light. I've traveled the world covering music and sports and all kinds of other interesting assignments. And so what I want to do on this show every week is pull some images out of my archive and tell the behind-the-scenes story of the pictures, the environment, what was going on, when it happened. I hope you'll subscribe to this show. That really helps me out a lot. Hit the like button as well. Tell the YouTubes that you're enjoying this. That's going to help me more than you know. Also, to support this show, what I'm doing for a limited time, I'm offering signed fine art prints of some of the images I'm going to talk about today, and then on the other episodes as well. You can check all of that out at davidbergmanphoto.com. I really appreciate that. All right, we're going to go back to the summer of 1997. Sarah McLachlan, very famous Canadian singer-songwriter, wonderful musician. She created this tour called Lilith Fair, and the story there is she founded this tour with her management team really to combat sexism in the music industry. The story that I heard was that Sarah had been told by promoters at the time that they wouldn't book female headliners for arenas or stadiums because it just wouldn't sell. People wouldn't go to see a female headliner, and they didn't want to support that. So she knew this wasn't true. She knew that she could absolutely get some of her friends together and create an amazing all-female tour. And so she did. She created Lilith Fair, and it did amazingly well, right? They played stadiums all around the country. I think it was a North American tour, actually. I'm not sure if they left North America, but they raised over $10 million for charity. It was one of the highest grossing tours of those years. They played summers 97, 98, and 99, and it went really, really well. I was working at the Miami Herald at the time. I actually covered one of the Lilith shows when it came to West Palm Beach, Florida. I actually photographed that on assignment for the Miami Herald, but that was my only connection at the time. But then in 2010, I had left the Herald. I was living in New York City by then, and I was brought on. Sarah revived the tour again for the summer of 2010, and they brought me on as the tour photographer to cover the entire tour. It was actually a good friend of mine, Finn. Thank you so much for bringing me in on that. The production manager is somebody I worked with the Bare Naked Ladies, and so that's a lot, how this industry works. It's word of mouth, it's friends, it's connections. Once you've worked with somebody and they trust you, they're going to bring you in to do more things. So thank you, Finn, for that gig. And thank you, Sarah, for having me. So this tour, when it started out, we had production rehearsals in Vancouver. We did a bunch of Canadian shows first. So the Vancouver was where production rehearsals started. And the thing about touring, if you've ever been on a tour, those of you who are watching who are crew people, life revolves kind of around your tour bus, right? Your tour buses, we live, we sleep, we all hang on the tour buses in between shows. You travel overnight, usually on a tour bus. You sleep on the buses. There are bunks on most buses. So I oftentimes photographed the buses in Vancouver. The sun was setting, and it was just really gorgeous. So I did that, and then we left Vancouver and we were traveling to the show in Calgary, and on the road somewhere, I don't know what had happened, but they had shut down the road for a period of time, a half hour or an hour, and it was kind of early in the morning. We all woke up because, when you feel the bus stop, you figure you're in the next city. So everybody wakes up. We all sort of came off the buses like bears out of hibernation, and it was just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. I'm not Canadian, but those of you who live up in that part of the world know that it's just that road from Vancouver to Calgary, surrounded by mountains, snow-capped mountains, even in the summer, was just gorgeous. So, of course, I had to take pictures of that. And then, just to finish this thought on buses, when we were in Edmonton, we had so many buses on this tour because not only the Lilith crew and Sarah's band and the staff of the tour, but also all the other artists. The way Lilith works is Sarah headlines every night. It's her show, it's her tour. But then all day long, there are other artists. It's 3 stages, and a lot of amazing artists who would come and go based on their own touring schedule. They would come in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shows, and they would perform those shows in a row, and then they would leave. Maybe they'd come back later, just based on their schedule when they could come and go. So at this show in Edmonton, we crammed so many buses into that lot. I think, on counting them, it looks like 23 buses to me. And again, those of you that tour know that's a lot of buses. Our head of transportation, JP, he was very happy to have maneuvered all of those buses in there. JP, I hope you're watching this. He had asked me to get that shot because he just wanted to remember how many buses. I'm sure he's beat his record by now, but that was quite a lot of buses. But then back to my job as the tour photographer. I was the only tour photographer. So the cool thing is, as far as my workplace was, I had my bus that I slept on, but we had bus number 1 was a production bus. So there were 4 or 5 of us that was our office. So I actually had a desk, because all the shows were outdoors. So we didn't really have good facilities like you do in an arena where we could work every day. And the production people had work to do, and I had images to edit. And I was servicing clients for the tour and making sure to get him. And so I needed a place to work. So they actually gave me a desk in this production bus. It was just for production. Nobody slept on this bus. I'd wake up in the morning. I'd walk from the bus I was on. I was probably, I don't remember what bus number, but bus 3 maybe. I would walk from that bus over to bus 1 and go to work, right? Which was really nice. I only have this one really bad 2010 phone picture of what that production bus looked like. But once this tour started, there was so much to document. Like I said, there were 3 stages. The days were really long. Because it's a festival, the shows started really early in the morning. I think 11 a.m. or something like that was the first artist. And 3 stages all going on at once. It was hot out because, especially traveling across the U.S., we'd be in Kansas City in July, and it was 100 degrees, and it was brutal. And then we'd have days, runs where we'd have 4 shows in a row, 4 shows in 4 days. So you basically barely get any sleep. By the time I'm done editing, you sleep for a couple hours, you wake up and you do it all over again. And then the first thing in the morning, first thing I had to document every day, Sarah would have a press conference in every city. And what they were doing is they were really supporting local organizations. Most cases, I think it was women's shelters. And so they were donating money just like they did back in the 90s. And so this was a typical press conference. Erykah Badu was there. She was there on that show. Sheryl Crow, Sarah, of course, her manager, Terry McBride, and then Jennifer Nettles from Sugarland. So I had to cover this every day. And then we do the sort of traditional big fake check, handover. It was always a nice photo op. So I was doing those. And then the other thing that was really unique about this tour, that's unlike any other tour I've ever been on, is they had an eco-village in every city, right? So we had a whole extra bus of people and a lot of extra trailers of gear, and they would set up this village at every show, and they were basically distributing free products and getting out information to the community about sustainable products and environmental issues. And really it was quite incredible. A whole bunch of great people on that tour that normally would not be on tour, people who'd never been on tour before, who got to come out with us and provide this information. That was all Sarah's doing. That's all what Lilith is really all about. So it really was quite an experience. Then at the end of the day, what's it about? It's about the shows, right? The performances, so much fun to photograph. I shot so many great artists every single day. Bands like Sugarland, they put on such a great show. Heart was there for some shows. This is Nancy Wilson doing her thing, as she always does. She's still going strong. Pretty amazing. Sheryl Crow was there. She goes way back with Sarah. They're obviously good friends. I mean, Sarah would come on stage and just she'd perform with Sarah and then pick her up and carry her off stage, which always made for a great photograph if she did that. Jenny Rivera was there. She's a really amazing Mexican artist who was out on the West Coast, and she actually was giving tequila out to the front row, which I don't know if that's legal, but she was drinking it on stage and giving out tequila. I may or may not have imbibed in one of those, but she was super fun. Miranda Lambert was there, putting on a great show. A young artist, a brand new artist, at least to me at the time, Sarah Bareilles, who of course now is a superstar. I'm a big fan, Sarah. I hope you watch this. But she was just 2010, I think, was just coming into the mainstream. So, but she was on the main stage. Sarah, McLachlan had put her there, and she really deserved it. And of course, she's gone on to do so many good things. And then because I have this access that nobody else really has, I'm able to be backstage and be side stage, and there's so much interaction. The artists, everybody got along so well. So something like Sarah Bareilles with Ingrid Michaelson here, just fooling around for me. Backstage was super fun. And then I'm always looking for interesting photographs. This is Vince Jones. He's Sarah's musical director, Sarah McLachlan's musical director and keyboard player. So because this was during the day, a lot of times there was daylight in some of these shows that we don't normally have when you photograph a concert. It was really nice to get some different images like this. This reminded me, as I was shooting it, of an old picture of Ray Charles, where you can see the piano in his glasses. And so it's kind of my homage to that, being able to zoom in really tight, get as close as I could and zoom in and really see that reflection inside his glasses. And then, of course, Mary J. Blige was there. I talked about her performing Stairway to Heaven on one of the other episodes of this show, and I photographed her. I did a portrait later, a couple years later, and was able to reminisce with her about this performance. I mean, she really just left it all out there on the stage. The best part of this, like I said, was really the camaraderie. I mean, everybody loves Sarah McLachlan. So, at the end of every show, they would bring out all the artists who were there, who wanted to come out, and it was all of them, of course, to perform together. They would do a song with Sarah. And so here she is with Mary J. Blige and Hart. I mean, such an eclectic group of amazing performers all together that I can't think of another environment where you would see that kind of a performance and get to be part of that. And then we got some cool venues too. This is the Gorge in Washington State. If you've been there, it's an incredibly scenic concert venue. Very cool place to be, to watch a show. Tough place to work because just walking around, it's obviously a huge incline, and backstage is a bit rustic, so it takes a little harder work. Our crew guys, I'm sure, had to work overtime to really get things happening there, but it's just so gorgeous that it's absolutely worth the climb. And then backstage at a show like the Gorge, you just never know who you're going to run into. So, I happened to see Sarah McLachlan with Grace Potter, who was just sort of he reached her tipping point to become, really well known, and Jennifer Nettles, and, just have the three of them in a moment backstage. And then Sarah is just one of those people where she's so approachable that, if the crew was backstage playing hacky sack, she would just join in. Like there's nothing about her where she wants to separate herself, put herself above anybody else. She gets right down there with the crew. She's happy. She was drinking with us. She was playing hacky sack. If it was somebody's birthday, she was right there with the cake singing happy birthday. So, I mean, it just so much talks about who she is. I mean, to be honest, probably before this tour, you'd think I'm not the demographic of a typical Sarah McLachlan fan, but I'm a huge Sarah fan. To watch somebody, what I love about what I do is I get to watch people who are so good at what they do. And Sarah is one of those people where she's so talented. To see it up close and to be a part of it and then to get to know them a little bit really is it's an amazing experience, and one that I don't take for granted. So then getting to know her and getting to know the band and everybody, when I'm side stage or I'm waiting for a performance to start, I can make pictures like this, right? This is Sarah just, hamming it up for me, side stage. That's her, surrounded by her band. They're about to go on stage. It's also Chantal Kreviazuk is there. She's a very well-known Canadian singer-songwriter. And those are the kind of pictures that I love, because most people can't make this picture. I have the access, I have the trust from the artists that I can be there, I can make these pictures, and they're going to allow me to share them. And that's just years of trust and experience that gets you to that point. The other thing, if you know me or if you've taken my live concert photography workshop, I'm big on photographing details. I try to find all those little details, those things that the fans wouldn't normally see unless I, as the photographer, bring it to them. So I can be the eyes for the fans backstage. So I'm going to look for those little details. Things like a set list, right? I always photograph set lists. This is one of Sarah's set lists. Obviously, you can see Angel is on there, the first song. I Will Remember You, Adia. I mean, all her hits. It really, if you're a Sarah fan, seeing that, super cool to be able to see that set list. Her radio just sitting side stage, right? I don't know if she ever actually wore her radio. We all wear production radios so we can keep in touch and know what's going on around the venue. Maybe she did, probably not. I'm sure Dan, her tour manager, was probably wearing it for her. But just to have that radio and that little picture to show a little behind the scenes. And then this picture I just love, because this screams rock and roll to me. A Fender amp with that microphone hanging down. I don't even remember what artist this was or where this was, during the show. show, but just those little kind of details like that. I just love those kinds of pictures. And really, at the end of the day, what this is about is it's an environment, it's friendship, the crew, the bands, the staff, everybody together working. You know, everybody's very good at what they do. Everybody at this level really is the best at their thing. Whatever their job is, they're the best at it, and they've all reached a level to be able to do a big tour like this. And then we all come together and create something bigger than the sum of its parts, right? I always make a picture, a crew picture, every tour I've ever been on. Most tours do this. And this is just a group of people. I always say touring is like a summer camp for adults who never grow up, right? I mean, we get to do this for a living and get to be out on the road and be playful, but yet work hard. And these kinds of tour crew pictures, I actually get in them myself because I want to be in the photograph too, selfishly. So what I do with every time I do these is I set up a camera either on a tripod or I clamp it to something, and then I use a remote. I use a Pocket Wizard remote so that I can run and get in the picture. I pre-focus, pre-set the exposure and everything, and I can run and get in the photograph, and then I can, right there with all my friends, I can say 1, 2, 3, and I can take a bunch of pictures. So I've done this on every tour, and it's just, you know, that friendship is something that I never forget. And each tour is its own little bubble in a way, and then we all go our separate ways, but it really is a small industry, and you wind up working with the same people. Again, maybe you haven't seen them in 10 years, but you come back together. I'm still friends with some of the people from that tour to this day. Really, the tone of any tour is set at the top. Sarah did an amazing job of setting a great tone for this tour. The touring economy at that time was not great. Unfortunately, Lilith, by the way, it was Lilith Fair in the 90s, and then it was just Lilith in 2010. Unfortunately, they had to end it a couple of weeks early. They had to cancel some shows. The touring environment, the economy was not really where it could be. All the tours were hurting that summer. But I'll say that while that was a bummer, we as the crew were really kept from that drama. I didn't feel any of that. I'm sure management was, you know, dealing with it every day. And I'm sure Sarah somehow was able to block that out and come out and do an amazing job and put on an amazing show every day. But they did a great job of creating this environment where we didn't know any of that and we weren't paying attention to that. We were just there putting on the best show that we could. And all of the artists were amazing. It was really one of the highlights of my career. So thank you, Sarah, for having me out. Thank you, Finn. Thank you, Dan. Everybody who made that happen, I really appreciate it. So what I'm going to do for this episode, again, I always offer one or two fine art prints from this episode. I'm going to offer 2 from this show. They're 11 by 14s. The first one is that Sarah Tongue photograph with her band backstage. I just think, like I said, it's a unique moment that you really won't see anywhere else. And then the other one is that Fender amp photograph. I think on your wall, it's going to look amazing. It, like I said, just screams rock and roll. I'm signing each one of these. I'm printing them myself on really nice gallery quality matte paper. So I hope you'll check that out. It's there. Those are all at davidbergmanphoto.com. You can see those on there and place an order if you want. That really helps support this show so I can keep doing it. I've also got pictures from the other episodes. Go back and watch those episodes. Maybe pick up a couple of prints of those as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here. Hope you're enjoying this show. Please hit the like button. That tells me that you want to see more of these. I'll keep digging into the archives, see what I can find, tell some interesting stories. So thanks so much for doing that. I'm going to see you back here next time, hopefully with a brand new picture from the vault.